What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Perhaps. This is episode 19. Thanks for being here. And after 19 straight weeks every Friday of this new podcast, I still want to call it a new podcast, even though we've been going. After 19 weeks today, I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. But the thing is, it's not just like a lack of ideas. It's the season I'm in right now, which I kind of cringe at me even referring to it as a season, but where I'm at right now, I'm trying to finish this book I'm working on. My second book. My first book was behind me right there, The God Who Riots, and this next book is supposed to be done within like the next 2 months, and I've pushed the deadline already multiple times because it's been a lot more difficult for me to work on than I thought it would be. And I need to finish this thing. And so I'm trying to give a lot of my creative juices or brain power or energy, effort to the book. But the thing that sucks is I'm also stuck on the book. I've been stuck for a while, and it's like kind of there already and just like jumbled up note form, but it's not there in real readable, comprehensible book form. And so it's a strange place to be in. If you've ever written anything, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I appreciate that. But it's a strange place to be, to feel like it's almost done and not even close to the same time. And today I just wanted to talk a bit about that, about some of that creative block, some of the ideas around it, and also about how I'm learning to have more compassion for myself and for the book and everything else I'm trying to work on. Also, I've gotten multiple ideas that I've thought actually that would make way more sense as a YouTube video instead of this podcast. So that's annoying too, to be in that position of being like, oh, here's something I could talk about. Oh, wait, no, actually it'll make more sense as that. Or actually, no, it'll make more sense as like a Substack article or something. Which for now, I think makes sense for me because I want to like be able to present ideas to people in a way that would be the most helpful. But also, you got to remember, as the first episode of this podcast said, it's a podcast, which means it's like we can say whatever we want on here. No big deal. But also, with that in mind, that means I could also do an episode just about my thoughts on this little creative block I'm in right now. And so that's what we're going to do. Thanks for being here. And let's see where could we start here. So yeah, I wrote this book, The God Who Riots, in 2021, the beginning of 2021, or most of 2021, and finished it. And it was very difficult to write that as well. And I was getting stuck at various points. And I just, at one point, decided, let me just write out all my ideas that I have and just write badly and be okay with writing badly. I mean, this is something people talk about with all types of writing. Writing a vomit draft is what people sometimes call it. I think that's people usually use that more in screenwriting context, and just like getting all the ideas out there and accepting it's easier to reshape a terrible first draft into a decent second draft than it is to write a decent first draft at the first go. And so it's like, let me just get it all out there. And that shift helped me finish that first book. But what's also funny is I didn't even write everything that I initially planned to write when I put together the outline for that whole thing. And I finished chapter 1 draft, working on chapter 2, and there's all these ideas I had for chapter 2, and then there was going to be 3, 4, 5, I think maybe 6. And as I was working on chapter 2, I kept on getting these ideas, realizing, well, I need to talk about this. I need to talk about this. Oh, this thing is actually going to take a lot more for me to explain and expand on. And this and this. And it just kept getting longer and longer. And I felt like I was behind because I'm still on chapter 2 and the deadline's coming up. And eventually I just stopped and realized, hold up. All this material that I've written in chapter 2 is enough for a whole book in its own. And I had written a little bit of chapter 3, and then I just gave up and was like, okay, this is the book. And I didn't even write anything for the rest of chapter 3 or 4 or 5. And so if you're curious how it ended up being rearranged was the first 2 chapters were originally going to be chapter 1, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, skipping 7, 8, and 9 were all chapter 2. And then chapter 7, I moved everything around too, was going to be the beginning of chapter 3. And so it's just like, I know some of you may be like, may find this boring and be like, what are these numbers? How do you even, but I know there's at least a couple of you out there that are curious about this stuff, especially those who also write and create stuff and are just interested in other people's process. That's why I'm saying all this, because I think I would have appreciated hearing other people also share a bit of their process and where they struggled and how they rearrange things to create the final book or script or song or album or film or art piece of some kind. And so it's and then everything got like really rearranged. It wasn't even necessarily in that order when it was just one chapter, but even like the crucifixion stuff or Jesus rioting in the temple was supposed to be like toward the beginning, and then in the editing process I put it at the end after all. But I that was a lot. I learned a lot through that process, and I learned a lot about getting through creative block, and I learned a lot about how to just not overthink things so much and not put so much pressure on things and accept the whole process of writing and editing and the whole thing. And then when I started working on the second book, I felt like I learned everything I needed to learn. Even I thought I would probably finish this book way quicker. Like this book will probably be done in like a few months. It would just be easy. I think it's about to be almost 2 years I've been working on this book. And it ended up being way harder. And then I was just waiting for like this shift that I had during the first time of, okay, I just need to figure out what's holding me back, what's stopping me, what's making it more difficult, and make that shift in my mind. And then I'll be able to just go right through it, like what happened in the first book. And it never came around. And I learned more about writer's block in general and people's advice and all these concepts that people talk about of procrastination is really a coping mechanism, not laziness. And it's a coping mechanism we use when we feel overwhelmed by emotions. And so the real way to handle procrastination is to process your emotions and figure out, what are you actually feeling? What do you feel overwhelmed by? Go through that whole process. And so little things like that. And then of course, like being able to write badly and be okay with writing badly and then edit later, and advice about just write at the same time every day, or just write little bits by little bits, or write with this perspective or that perspective. And it's like I feel like all of the most common writer advice swimming in my head. I get it. I know. But it still wasn't working. I would still get stuck. I would open the document and it's white, like white page, white background with black letters, and it would just be so bright in my eyes. And it would just gross me out. And I'd be like, no, I can't. It's just too much. I would just open it and get repulsed and just avoid. And so a lot of this time over the last couple of years hasn't been me working hard on the book. It's been me avoiding the book and trying to figure out what's going on in my head and my body and how I can put this together. And yeah, little things have helped along the way. And I've learned a lot about myself and my health and mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. That has helped me in different ways. And yet, the book has still been hard. One thing that has helped me have a little bit more grace on myself is accepting that the book is just hard, period. Like I don't want to talk too much about like the contents of the book in this episode, but what I'm trying to do in the book is very difficult. Very, very difficult and new and unfamiliar in some ways for me. It's pretty different than the first book. And the way I go about things, I guess, is pretty different. And it's also a lot more personal. And that's also made it harder. And there's just all these mind games of what I want it to be, how I want people to read it, what I want it to be even in the future, and be able to be, I guess, relevant or understandable in the future as well. And just, trying to make it accessible. All this stuff. I'm trying to combine a bunch of different ideas together in one that I've never seen put together in one before. And something that I was thinking recently that I really wanted to share in this episode, which is something I was talking about in therapy. I see a therapist, talk to a therapist like every other week or every week. And we've talked about this stuff before. And I spent a long time trying to figure out like what is the shift that I need, or what is the revelation that is going to motivate me? What is the big revelation that's going to be like, oh, Damon, you're thinking of it this way, but you need to think about it this other way, or you're doing it from this approach, but if you do it in this approach, this time and this way, then you'll be able to get over this block and it'll be easy. And I've come to a point over the last couple months where I've just given up trying to figure it out. It's just like, it's not gonna happen in the way that I'm dreaming of, at least. It's not gonna happen in the way that I'm thinking, in the very simple, like kind of big conversion moment type of way. Like I'm gonna hear the gospel and then and realize what everything means and make a turn on this big upper mountain revelation, ecstatic, psychedelic moment and convert to this new way of life and realize, oh, this is the key. This is the key I needed. And now I could do it. It's like a lot of waiting around for that and trying to figure out what it is from so many angles, psychological, physical, creative, like all this. And and it's just nothing working. And then one of the things that I've talked about a couple times, especially in the earlier episodes, is some of that mindset that I've had in general, where I was experiencing some depression and anxiety, and it was hard for me to do much. And one of the things that really helped me feel a lot more, how do you say, I guess feel better in a way, is realizing I'm not going to feel good in the way that I used to feel good, because that time's over. And whatever good I feel in the future is going to be a new kind of good. And that has ended up happening in like more general personal parts of my life, where there wasn't a moment where it's like, oh, I'm back to normal, I'm back to good. It's just like, no, life just changes, period. And it keeps on changing. We're in a constant state of becoming. And so with that in mind, that's also something that has inspired me, just accepting that I'm not going to figure this out. It's just hard. It's just hard. It's just difficult. But another angle of this is me thinking about my mind, similar to how we think about when we have problems with our body. It's like I was talking to my therapist about this like a couple weeks ago. When we have a pain in our body, it's like a random pain. It's not under our control. And maybe you could do something about the pain, but there's still an element of it being out of your control while you wait for it to get better or feel better or stop hurting or be less stiff or whatever. Or there's times where something happens to your body and then it just stays like that and it's not under your control. And I've started to think like, I feel like our brains are like that, and our minds are thinking the way we think gets like that too. But we're under an illusion that we have more control over our mind than we do our body. But what if there's the same lack of control? And there's so many people have theorized about this, and like from like neuroscience perspectives, and like, is there really a self? Do we really have free will, or is it just pure absolute determinism? Or even spiritual perspectives of like, is there a self? Is there a doer? Like all this stuff we could get into, and this is just me also bringing it up to say like many other people have thought about this from several angles before, and that's all inspiring this thought process as well. But I'm just trying to give a simple take here, not including all that other stuff, of just saying, yeah, what if we have the same lack of control? Not to say that we have no control, but the same limit of control. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Same limit of control over our mind that we do our body. And it's not like we would usually think, having a drastically more control. And so, like a few weeks ago, I slept weird on my hand, and my middle finger was like hurting a lot. Like the joints, when I would try to bend it back, it would be painful. But I could just tell, based on the pain, that this was just temporary and it would go back to normal eventually. I just have to get through it and not put too much pressure on it. And that's what has happened. But with that analogy, I feel like my mind not being able to do what I wanted to do feels similar. Where it's like there's like a pain there, or a sore, or something out of place, and it's just, it'll probably get better later, but this is just how it is right now. I just got to deal with it right now. And then it made me think of people with chronic pain issues that don't just go away, and thinking a lot about people I know who have chronic pain and how they deal with that, and going to work and still doing the things that they're able to do in their responsibilities while having chronic pain, and wanting to just think about, okay, yeah, how do they get through that? It takes a different approach of knowing your different limits, knowing what you can do, knowing what you need help with, and not getting discouraged. But it also takes you giving up this idea of, I'll work on that when I feel good, which I think a lot of us can get stuck in that mode. Like, well, I can't do that because I don't feel good right now. But I feel like people with chronic pain have learned how to, that they can't operate like that, because it's the feel good you're imagining is just in your imagination, and you have to figure out ways to do it anyway. I mean, if I even feel like parents, I don't have a child, but parents definitely have to learn to do that with their kids, of like, I don't feel like doing that, or I'm on no sleep, I'm stressed out, but I still have to do this thing. And that's like a basic thing we all learn as humans. But what's funny is it's hard to learn that creatively, because when you have those issues creatively, usually advice from your friends and sometimes even other creatives is, oh, maybe you should just stop. Maybe you should just take a break. Maybe you should just like set it down. Or maybe this is a sign that you're not meant to work on this thing. It's like that language. And yet, you wouldn't use that advice on someone with like another type of job where it's like, I'm at the grocery store and it's just been hard lately. I don't think anyone would be like, well, maybe this is a sign that you should take a break, or you should take time off. Like sometimes that makes sense, but I think there's more understanding to the idea of like, it's hard, but I need to figure out a way to get through this. And there's more of a willingness to think through that with nuance than when you have a creative issue. I think people are a lot quicker to just say, oh, maybe you should just stop. Maybe you should just walk away completely. Maybe this isn't meant for you. Maybe you're not supposed to do this thing. And I think that's bad advice. And I brought that up to my therapist too. And my therapist also agreed, because I think, especially from this like psychotherapy perspective, that the good ones is they're trying to help you like get new strategies to get through life, not just run away from things when it's too hard. And so that's been something I've been wrestling with. And so, yeah, back to what I was saying about the pain thing, where in the mind, where it just started to feel like, okay, yeah, this is just a difference in my mind that I have to learn to work with. Not to say that I need to lock in and grind and hustle and just work hard and just do it anyway. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. It still would require learning new approaches to the different ways that your mind works, and still, of course, being very intentional with rest and yeah, taking breaks, that of course. But it would just require a different approach and just accepting this is just how it is. In the same way you'd say, like, I'm always having headaches, or I'm always having back pain, or I'm always having leg pain. I'm always having mind pain. Like it's just not working the way I want it to work. So, and this is another thing. I think like all my neurodivergent listeners, I'm sure are like, yeah, this is something we learned when I was a little kid or something. Like it's just, I get it. And I don't know what neurodivergence I have, but I know I'm not neurotypical, but this is just, I feel like there's not that many people talking about this shift in thinking when it comes to creative stuff and writing. And so I was talking about that with my therapist, and then I said, we were going back and forth about this idea of I can't just stop and walk away, and I don't want to stop and walk away, but not in like this unhealthy, too much pressure, grind set type of way. But it's just like, I want to finish this book, and I think it's really important. So I'm not going to just give it up just because it's hard. And then I just said, like, I feel like it's kind of like when you have a kid, and this might sound wild coming from me, from a person who has no kids, to the listeners that do have kids, but stick with me. Just hear me out. I said, it feels like when things get hard with a kid, imagine your friends telling you, maybe you should just walk away. Maybe you should just take a break. You wouldn't say that. And that's what I think I was just like looking for affirmation in that feeling of like, this is really hard and I'm trying to get through it. And I'm trying to, I'm sharing this with my friends, and my friends have been really supportive with that. But I just know that walking away from this thing just doesn't make sense. Almost like it wouldn't make sense to tell a parent, just walk away from your kid. Maybe this kid isn't meant for you. Just walk away. It's like, no, you got to figure this out. And maybe try different approaches. Also, like, get help, of course. Try to find some help in ways that you need help. But ultimately, walking away isn't an option. And so, in that like analogy, we started talking about that, and it started to help me understand things in a different way. Because then I was saying how some friends have told me, well, didn't you learn how to like do this in the first book? Are you able to like carry forward any of the things you learned from writing the first book for the second book? But it's like, no, for some reason, no. And my therapist was like, yeah, it's kind of like when you have a second kid. And she had just had a second kid. And it's like people tell you, like, didn't you learn with the first kid? But the second kid is different than the first kid. And sometimes the second kid is really different than the first kid. And none of the things you learned from the first kid work anymore. And you have to figure out a new approach. But really, you have to be tuned in to this new kid and figure out what this new kid needs, what this new kid responds to, what this new kid likes, what this new kid doesn't like. And you can't just take the old advice from how it went with the first kid. And then I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, that's how this feels with this second book. Of the things I learned from the first book aren't working with the second book. And also, I'm thinking of parents who are watching like these infomercials about spending time with your kids, and these YouTube videos about how to be a good parent, reading books about and blogs about how to be a good parent and raise your kid right. And I imagine there's a lot of parents out there that engage with all that advice and material out there and say, yeah, but you don't know my kid. That doesn't, yeah, some of that works, but this kid is different. And I said, that's how I feel about this book. It's like, this book is different, okay? I get all this advice about writing and creative block and creativity and putting ideas together and making first drafts and stuff on procrastination and processing your emotions, which I've done so much of that. And this book is just different. Y'all don't get it. And I started to think about the book in that way. And it slowly started to help me have more compassion for myself and for the book. Some of the pressures started to get released. And then I started thinking about this scenario that I shared earlier in this episode, where it's like I'll open a document and then just like push it away and avoid, and it just feels like too much. Like, it reminded me of a dad who's like working and struggling to make money and provide for his kid and build a good life for his kid. And the kid walks in and wants the dad's attention, and the dad's just like, not now, just push it away, like, not now. And I imagine people in that situation feel like, doesn't this kid understand that I'm doing all this for him? Doesn't he understand? What is he doing bothering me right now? Everything I do is for him. But it's like the kid just wants to spend time with his dad. And so I realized too, like, I feel like that parent that just so badly wants their kid to turn out right, wants everything in their life and the kid's life to be good and healthy and not dangerous, just super safe, not have to go through anything bad ever in their life, and to also learn everything they need to survive in the real world, and to be able to understand like how to build healthy relationships and how to get a job and work that out and be out there on their own and just make sure they're okay. And yet they're worrying about all that when the kid is like a toddler. And they're so worried about how the kid will turn out later. And they're so worried about if they're a good parent and if they're messing the kid up. And I felt like that's how I'm seeing this book. I think I'm just stressing so much about what the book should be, what the book could be, what the book would be if I did all the right things, and wanting the book to just turn out perfect. And it's like, meanwhile, I just need to spend time with the book. I just need to be present and show up in little ways. I need to change the diapers. I need to take the kid to the park. I need to play with the kid. I need to just be there and take care of the little things. And with that, this big wild metaphor, analogy, I'm not sure the right word, in mind, I started to have more compassion for the book and feel kind of bad, like I feel like a neglectful perfectionist father right now who needs to have more compassion for myself and for my kid, for my book, and just be present and just do little bit by little bit and figure it out and edit it later if I need to. In the same way that parents just have to figure it out in real time, mess up, apologize later, do better next time. Just like I'll edit And that's just it. It doesn't have to be so scary. And so that, again, that isn't the key to helping me move forward that I was looking for this whole time. But I don't think that's going to come. But it is something that relieved a lot of stress for me around this book. And that's been cool to feel over the last couple of weeks. And so I want y'all to think about some of those things in your life. Maybe it is a kid in your life, or maybe it's a relationship, a romantic relationship, or it's a job, or it's a creative project, or it's a sport you're getting into, or it's a book you're writing. Are you too focused on making sure that it comes out right in the end, so focused on the future of it and its perfection that you're not being present with it in the moment and doing the little things that are required now? Maybe. Think about that. I'm sure there's things like that in all of our lives, especially in this time and place where it's a lot harder to get back up when we make mistakes, when we invest time and energy and money into relationships or projects, and it's a bigger loss in a world where the cost of living keeps increasing. It becomes a lot easier to have that perfectionist attitude that this needs to work out. This needs to turn out great and perfect, or else it'll be a big loss. Or else I'll have to start over, and that would be a huge loss. But that's also just part of life. And I also think if we were to lower the cost of living for people and have better wages and better resources, better communities, then we would be able to go through that very natural part of life a lot easier with a lot less stress. Because, a lot of life and maturing and figuring things out is just failing your way through life, or just experimenting, trying new things. No, that didn't work. What about this? Oh, that didn't work. Let's try it different. And we could put so much pressure on ourselves to get everything right the first time, because so much justifiable fear around it. But I think there's also some unjustifiable fear too that we can work through. You know what I mean? So I want y'all to think about that. That's a bit of what I've been going through with my own creativity and creative block, writer block, book stuff. And I'll tell y'all more about the contents of the book another time. But trust me, this book's going to be good. And I hope you got something out of this episode. So thank you for listening. Subscribe, share this with somebody if you want. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia. Check out the video version of this on YouTube, the audio version of this on podcast apps. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.